Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Gary Smith, and welcome to the NMLS Test Prep. Today, I want to present to you the NMLS Test Prep session. What this does is it prepares you to go and take that 125 question, 3-hour-long test and come out with a passing grade. My goal for you is for you to pass the very next time. I've developed a study plan and put together resource materials that will help you accomplish this goal and help you to advance your career as a mortgage loan originator. And so we're going to spend about the next 6 hours going through how to pass that NMLS test. And NMLS test has been with us since about 2009, 2010. When it first came out, it was really easy, straightforward, a lot of high passing ratio. Somewhere around 2014, 2015, NMLS decided that they wanted to make it tougher. And so the test, you really need to have some guidance in taking it. The very first critical part of studying of taking the test is studying the test for the test. And so what I have found to be effective, I've taught these classes for about 8 years. What I found to be effective is a study plan that basically looks at about 3 weeks of study. So we look at, we want a 3-week study plan. Okay, and in that study plan, And in that study plan, we are looking at 2 times per day of study, and we're looking at no more than 2 hours per session. Okay, so why do we say, well, just 2 hours? You know, I taught the 20-hour class for so long, and I was used to people coming into the classroom, and it'd be 8 o'clock in the morning the first day. They'd come be popping in. Hi, Mr. Smith. We're here. We're just pumped up. We're ready to do this. And then I would look out. I'd teach for like 3 hours. I'd look out in the crowd, and everybody's kind of like a zombie. Okay, so realistically, you can study too much. Your brain shuts down at about 2 hours. It just really does. It loses interest. And so that's why, you know, if you had a day like, let's say you say, well, today's Saturday, I'm going to study all day. If you study all day, you're just wasting your time. If you break it up into 2-hour increments with about an hour or two after that, then of a break, then you'll retain much, much more. And it's important for you to retain the information that is being given to you, so that when you get your test questions, you can pass. So we're looking at, again, a 3-week study plan. After the session, I need you to go into NMLS and go to your site, and schedule your test. Okay, I want you to schedule your test somewhere between 11 and 2. What time is your test? It's at 8 a.m. 8 a.m.? Okay, so 8 a.m., realistically, you guys are going to have to get up at about 5 o'clock, okay, because you need to do about an hour and a half of preparation before you go take your test, okay? So, and that I'll go through that hour and a half preparation, what to study that day, so that you can be what I call in mortgage mode. So for right now, we're looking at a 3-week study plan, twice a day, 2 hours per session, and we're looking at one topic, okay, at a time. So the thing with that is that you don't want to study and just kind of study here. You want to study a specific topic so that your brain will absorb that. And I kind of look at that like, you know, old style. I mean, when I think, you know, my generation, we had a lot of paper. We did a lot of paper. We put it in filing cabinets. And so you would open that file drawer, and you would be looking for a certain subject where to file a piece of paper. And that's the way your brain is. When you open your brain, when you start studying, it's looking at one topic that it's going to embrace and absorb. And if you start misfiling everything, that means like if you would be studying Truth in Lending Act, and all of a sudden you dump some RESPA in, okay, and then some Homeowners Protection Act, the next thing you know, your file is all jumbled up, and you won't be able to extract that information when you're taking your test, when you need to find that. So just make sure you stick to that plan of one topic at a time. So we've scheduled our test, okay? So tomorrow you're going to schedule your test. You're going to start your study plan twice a day. On the weekends, you can go to 3 times a day. You guys are going to need to do 3 times a day because you got a short fuse, okay? So we want to make sure that you do that. One of the things so when you've studied, I'm going to give you a test that I want you to send to me halfway through your study plan. So once you say, hey, Gary, my test is on April 28th, okay? So somewhere about April 14th, you would send me this test, and you're going to let me refocus your studies. So I'm going to redirect what you're studying. That means that if you know RESPA, you know the 4 sections of RESPA, you've got it down like the back of your hand, you don't need to take another 10 days to keep studying RESPA. Study things subjects that you don't have a command of. So you might have RESPA down, but you're lacking in TRID. So I'm gonna analyze that test for you and refocus your studies, and all of a sudden tell you, hey, you need to be studying TRID this last part before your test. So we're gonna look at that. When you get into the testing center, and I'm assuming everybody is going into a testing center, the MLS still offers a testing at home. It's just too stressful. Don't do that. COVID is, I won't say it's over, but it's not as much a concern as it was at the beginning of 2020. And so you can go into the testing center. People were telling me horror stories of taking their test at home, showing the examiner the entire room where you're at, looking under the desk, etc. And then for the 3 hours and 10 minutes that you're taking the test, you're focused right in on that computer. And if you don't look at the computer, if you look away, they'll call you on it. So you don't want that stress in addition to trying to pass a 125 question test. So if you would take, let's look at kind of when you go in to take your test, obviously they're going to make sure that you don't have anything on you that you could talk into and record, like, talking to your watch or something. So leave the jewelry at home, leave everything at home. Don't bring a calculator. They're going to provide the calculator for you. They're going to wand you down. It's almost like getting on a plane and making sure that you don't have anything. You're going to go and sit in a cubicle. About the first 15 minutes of the test or of the session is going to be how the computer works and how to take the test. So I want to write a test question up here, kind of show you the format. A lot of times people are looking at, well, the questions are tricky or situational, and that's true, but I'm going to show you how to extract the answer out of the question so that you're not caught up in all the words that they've added, etc. So bear with me for just a minute. So Bob and Mary, they are my favorite people. Bob and Mary, I always use them. So Bob and Mary own their own home. Okay, they pay PMI insurance monthly. Okay. Bob and Mary can request cancellation. Oop, misspell. Can request. Oh, I started it. Cancellation of the PMI when they have, blank equity. Okay, so then we've got it's always multiple choice, okay? That typically on this test, it's going to be 2 answers you're going to be able to eliminate right away, and then you're going to have to juggle between the other 2. So just put some answers down here for you. Okay. Okay, so this is how your screen should look when you see that. Mary and Ryland, can you guys read the question on the board? Are we good? Okay, just want to make sure. All right, so this pops up. Okay, Bob and Mary own their own home. They pay PMI insurance monthly. Bob and Mary can request cancellation of the PMI when they have blank, should be percent, blank percent equity. Okay, typically when you see a question like this, they're throwing in some stuff, okay, to confuse you. They just want to make sure that you have the ability to reason with it. So what I look at is finding keywords that will take you right to the correct answer. And in this question right here are 2 keywords. Okay, what's one of them, Anna? Equity is a keyword. Very good.
Probably PMI.
No? Mary, you got an answer? I can't hear you though. That's the problem. I'm sorry? No. I don't know why I can't hear you. Are you unmuted? Wow. Okay. Okay. The second keyword is request. Okay. So this is part of the Homeowners Protection Act. I'm sure you guys have studied that. And the Homeowners Protection Act deals with what? It deals with the cancellation of private mortgage insurance. And this is only private mortgage insurance. Does not apply to FHA. Not apply to FHA's, well, you do pay monthly mortgage insurance on USDA loans as well. So when you look for the 2 key words, you don't have to worry about Bob and Mary owning their own home, etc. You're just looking at this and saying, okay, my keywords are request and equity. Okay. They also put in, right here we have a punctuation mark. Percentage sign is a punctuation mark. We were taught in school, in grade school, etc., that when you had a punctuation mark, that was the end of the sentence, right? At least I was. Maybe that was me. But so we want to make sure that on your test that you read each question 3 times before you ever go to answer. You've got to read each question 3 times before you answer. And then, once you've read it 3 times, then you look for the keywords. Okay? Now, not every question will have a keyword. I would estimate about 50 to 60% of the test questions will have keywords that zero you right into the correct answer. So what's the correct answer here? 20. Okay, 20 is the correct answer. 20% equity. Okay. Now, typically in your course, it's going to be taught as loan to value. When I was teaching it, we said, okay, when you had an 80% loan to value, you could request cancellation. When you had a 78% loan to value, then it was automatic. Okay, so loan to value, equity is just the value of the property, which is going to be 100%. 100% of the value of the property minus the loan to value, which would be 80% in this case, gives you a 20% equity position. Okay. So let's look at this question again. And we look down here, we got this box for review. Very often, Ryland, have you taken your test before? Raise your hand if you have. No? Okay. Mary? Okay. So great. Have you guys taken? Okay. This is great. Okay. Nobody's taking their test. So I want to make sure that on this box right here for review, you can check that if either A, you're unsure of your answer, or B, you can't get an answer. Here's my caveat. If you check a lot of questions for review, I really look at that as going back and changing the answer. You're really changing the right answer to a wrong answer. So unless you have an overwhelming, compelling reason for changing your initial answer, do not do it. I can't tell you how many people have come in and sat with me for test prep and said, hey, I don't understand. I got a 73, I got a 74. And I'll ask them, how many answers did you change? Oh, I changed 6. There you go. If you'd left it alone, you likely would have passed. We only care if you pass, right? You only have to get, what's the score? 75. 75%. It's not going to be on your license. When you get your license from the state, it's not going to say, only got a 76% on their test. Nobody's going to know that. The only one that will ever know your test score is your employer, because they're going to have access to your MLS record. Okay? So you don't, it doesn't matter. You just need to get a 75. Okay? So we look at this, and so we look at it and we say, okay, I'm going to mark that for review, because you just can't come up with the answer. One of the things that you can do, let's say this is question number 32. One of the things that you can do is click on the notes box up here, and you can type yourself a note. You can say, on question 32, I'm confused about the answer being either 20 or 80%. Okay, because there are probably half a dozen questions, I would say, maybe a little bit more, where they will give you a similar question later on in the test, and it will answer this question. So you want to write down, you want to write a note to yourself. On question 32, I think the answer is 20, but I'm not sure. And then later on there'll be a question, that'll say, Bob and Mary have 80% loan to value in their home, or their mortgage is 80% of the value of their home. What can they do? And one of it will be request cancellation. So those answers will tie in. And that's in about half a dozen of them. So you need to write yourself a note. The other thing that you can do is that you could, when your testing starts, the 15-minute tutorial does not count, okay, in your 190 minutes. But what you could do would be, once you start, you could open up the notes and you could do what we call a data dump. Okay, so you would go in and you would say, okay, FHA debt ratio is 31.43. Conventional debt ratio is 28.36. Whatever's in your head that you want to put down and list. Okay, so you could do that. Again, you don't have to. Some people do it. They find that they're more successful in their test. Okay, the whole goal of the study is that you walk into your testing center boldly, and you don't go in and go, oh, hi, I'm Gary Smith, I'm here to take the test. You go in and you say, hey, I'm Gary Smith, I'm here to pass my test. I'm here to pass my test. And one of the things that you want to do is to make sure that you're prepared, okay? And the other thing is while you're answering the questions, reading them 3 times, getting the key words, etc., that you go with your gut, okay? And I don't know, I always told my daughters, go with your first intuition. If the guy seems creepy, he probably is, right? Don't spend the time learning that on your own. Go with your intuition. So when you're reading this question and the answer pops into your head, 20, go with that. Don't sit there and talk yourself out of it. Oh, it's 20 because we're requesting cancellation and they want to know how much equity. Boom, 20. Mark it. Don't mark it for a review. Go along. Boom, you've already got one. Okay? How many questions can you miss on this test? How many answers can you get wrong? You can only get 28 wrong. So you need to be prepared so that you can get the full advantage out of every single question. Okay? So we want to look at that. when you're done with your test, go back, those few questions that you have a review on, and unless, again, you got an overwhelming reason to change your answer, don't be tempted to change it. There's nothing worse than getting, a 74 and going back into your boss and going, I got to wait another 30 days. And by the way, can I have $110 to pay for my next test? So you don't want to do that, okay? So again, be prepared for it. All right, so I'm going to erase this. Okay, so in your packet, you guys received, and in your packets there on the table, just want to talk about the 13 reasons why 30% of the MLOs fail the test. And of course, 30% was back in 2016. That number has increased to about 50% today. Okay, so we want to get you to pass the test. And I just want to go over a couple of them. On the second page, it talks about not enough study material. We're going to go through this packet that I UPS to you or that I've got here for you. Did you have a question, Mary? Oh, what's the name? Okay, thank you, Mary. It's this one right here. It says 13 reasons. Okay, 13 reasons why 30% of the LOs fail. Should be right there. You don't have that? Should be there.
No, you usually don't have to hit the control. It's just
We'll check on it at break. But anyway, there are several reasons that I want to point out. And the first one is not enough studying. Okay? So not enough studying is when people realistically think they should get out of their 20-hour class and go down and pass the test. That just doesn't happen with this. Real estate test, you can memorize all day long. How many acres in a section? How many sections in a township or a range? You can memorize that. But this one, you got to sit and you got to think about it. Okay, you got to look for keywords that we were talking about. So it typically takes about 60 additional hours of good studying after you have taken the 20 hours. There's no good study material available. Reason number 2, and I can just tell you that I put together a packet of good study material that if you study this material and follow my plan, I've been able to track it that about 85% of the people who follow my plan pass their test, whether it's their first time or their fourth time, okay? But you've got to follow the plan. Which brings us to number 3, wanting the answers, not wanting to study. And so there are people that I've worked with that they don't want to study. They want to take tests. Oh, I'm going to buy tests. I'm going to buy this test. I'm going to buy that test. And repetitiously taking the test. And then they email me and go, man, I bought this test. It's really great. I got a 92 on it. And I email them back and I say, how many times did you take that test? I took it 5. Well, good. You memorized it. Okay. This isn't what you can memorize. So taking tests time and time and time again does not really help you. The next one that I'm looking at is on number 8, and it says the task contains trick questions. And if you go in and if you look for those keywords, okay, you will not be tricked. Okay, it will come out for you. One of the things that you can expect probably about, I would say about 50-60% of the test questions to be negative questions. Okay, so let's look at this for a little bit. Let me come up with one. Okay, so you're going to have several that are going to, like I said, 50-60% that are going to be either negatives or double negatives. Okay, so all of the following are finance charges except. Okay, and you go, except, there's that negative again. Okay, so what is a finance charge? Okay, we'll get to that. Do you know? Go ahead, Jackie.
Well, it's the total cost of borrowing the money or the loan, and it's usually compiled of like all the fees and charges that are associated with getting the money loaned to you.
Okay, very good. That's close. That's really close.
Okay.
So anyway, when we look at this and we say all the following are finance charges except, you've got to pull out the charge that is not a finance charge. But what do we look at that and go, except, I can't do it. If you take the question and you eliminate the except, now reread the question. All the following are finance charges. Is an underwriting fee a finance charge? Yes, an underwriting fee is a finance charge. How about discount points? The answer is yes. Anna says yes. How about PMI insurance? The answer is yes. So, all the following are finance charges. Those three, A, B, and C, are finance charges. What is not a finance charge? The Alta or lender's title insurance policy. Do you see that? So don't let this little 6-letter word throw you, okay? Just cross it out, boom, go there. So, depending on the testing center, you're either going to have scratch paper and a pencil, or you're going to have like some sheets of whiteboard paper, and they'll give you one of these special pens. So if you have to write out the question, go ahead and do it. If it's going to make sense for you, if you're going to get that one right, go ahead and take the time to do it. Okay? We talked about taking the test, and that the test, the time for the test is 3 hours and 10 minutes, or 190 minutes. One of the things you want to make sure that you do is you want to pace yourself through this test. Okay? Trust me, people go through it and they take the test and I got all these answers right. Wow, I've only been doing this an hour and a half. I must be really smart, know all this stuff. And realistically, if you're taking the test and you're done in an hour and a half, it's probably not going to work well for you. Okay, you want to pace yourself. So you want to be at about 62, 63 questions after an hour and a half. Okay, you just want to kind of pace it. If you don't have that many done, then you want to pick up the pace a little bit, but you still want to read those questions 3 times. Okay, so want to make sure that we do that. They don't give you any extra points for finishing early. So here's the thing: if you got a 73 and they go, Gary, you got a 73, but gosh, you got done in an hour and a half, we're going to give you 5 extra points. They don't do that. So make sure you take your time, pace yourself so that you can score on this test what you need to do. So, okay, so that's talking about trick questions. The other one is situational questions. And we're going to look at, I wrote a lot of questions over my years, and I've got a math question that's really great. We're going to get into that, but that's a situational question where they just give you too much information. And a lot of times that's what your question does. It gives you items that you don't even need. Okay? So if you would put that aside, there'll be some of the things that we go through that we're going to come back to. This one we will not. So if you look at the next one, and it has appendix. Okay? So appendix A is at the very top of the page.
3 down.
Okay? Yeah, sorry, we have to go on my thing. So appendix A. If you would take your highlighter, if you've got a highlighter or marker, highlight Equal Credit Opportunity Act, or ECOA. And then also highlight Reg B. You need to know that ECOA is Regulation B. Home Mortgage Disclosure Act, or HMDA, is Regulation C. Okay, so what is the Home Mortgage Disclosure Act? What does it require us to do?
Make sure we're not discriminating against
Okay, so it's a discrimination law. How does a government entity know that or suspect that we might be discriminating? What do we have to do? Pardon me?
You have to fill out Section X of 1003.
Section X of 1003, which is now Section 7 of the new 1003, correct? Okay, demographics. Okay, so what do we have to do? We have to provide them 3 items. What are those 3 items? Race, sex or gender, and ethnicity. So you have to say, okay, are they white, black, Pacific Islander, Hawaii, Alaska Native, or Asian? Those are the 5 races. Okay, then we have to, for ethnicity, are they Hispanic or not? Okay, and then for gender, it's male or female. Okay, so those 2, if you go to the second page of the appendix, you've got 3 items. The Fair Credit Reporting Act, make sure you know that's Regulation V as in Victor. Okay. You've got the Real Estate Settlement Procedures Act, or RESPA, as Regulation X, or RESPAX. I always think of it as RESPAX. And then TILA, or Truth in Lending Act, is Regulation Z, or TILAs. Now, the Appendix B, okay? The Appendix B is giving you a highlight of various federal laws. So right under Appendix B, it has Truth in Lending Act, which is Regulation Z in bold. Okay, so what does Regulation Z do? Okay, well, it promotes the informed use of credit by disclosing finance charges in a uniform manner using the APR. So let me just kind of give you a little example of what advertising looked like prior to 1968 when Truth in Lending came out and became a law. So we might have broker A. Okay, and broker A is advertising a rate at 2.5%. Okay, and we have broker B, and they're advertising a rate of 4%. So if you're looking at the paper and you see the ads displayed, which broker are you going to call if you want to refinance your home or buy a home? You're going to call broker A, correct? Hi, he's got 2.5%. I'm going to go talk to him. But what broker A did not put in their advertising is that 2.5% costs 10 discount points. Okay, it requires 50% down. And it may be on a 3-1 arm. So when the APR comes out and it reduces all of this to a specific number called the annual percentage rate. So over here with all the finance charges, maybe the interest rate or the APR is 4.1%. Okay, but if you come over here and you add in the 10 discount points, etc., your APR might be 5.27. Okay, so it's a way that a consumer can compare closing cost by looking at the annual percentage rate. So that's why we had that. So prior to 1968, we didn't have that. Okay, so let's look at what increases the APR. Very important concept for you to get is that the APR takes into consideration not necessarily the loan cost, but the finance charges. So let's define a finance charge. Versus a third-party charge. At any rate, I ask you to get 4 colors of index cards. And those 4 colors are for TILA, RESPA, discrimination, discrimination, and miscellaneous. Okay, so your biggest part is going to be in miscellaneous, but this is going to be TILA. So pick a color, let's say that green is going to be TILA. So all things TILA are going to be written on a green index card. Then we want to look at how do we make that card. So let's say that this is the front part of your card, this is the blank one, and this is the side with the lines. So on every card, you would write TILA. Okay, you might want to write Reg Z. And then on the back, you're going to write definition of finance charge. Okay, and there are two, so you're going to list them, and that will be your index card. The next one, the next topic, okay, we might talk about APR. Okay, so what is the annual percentage rate? Okay, it is the uniform rate, including finance charges. So you want to make these cards so that you have them A, with you, and B, when you are seeing something, that you're committing it to writing. Because when you see something and then you write it down, you retain it better. Okay, so let's look here and talk about, there's a long, in the textbooks, there's a long definition of finance charges, and I've just kind of simplified it to 2 easy sentences. So there's 2 definitions of a finance charge. So the first one is a fee that is paid to and retained by the lender. So if I walk into your office and I say, I want to pre-qualify for a home loan, and you say, well, Mr. Smith, that's all well and good. You take my application. You say, well, I need to pull credit, and in order to get a credit report, I have to have your credit card. So I give you my credit card, and it shows up on my statement and my receipt as ABC Mortgage, which is who you work for. Okay. However, at the end of the month, when the bill comes in from the credit reporting agency, ABC Mortgage sends the money that I have paid to the credit reporting agency. Therefore, they do not retain it. Therefore, a credit report fee is a third-party charge. And with a third-party charge, the APR is not affected. If I was going to make you a loan at 4% interest, and there was not going to be any other charges, I was going to pay all the charges, okay? Then what would your APR be? Would it be 0? Or would it be 4? And the answer is it would be 4, because your very first basic finance charge is mortgage interest. Okay? Mortgage interest. Interest is a fee for the use of someone's money. Okay? So you're borrowing money, you're paying them interest. That is a finance charge. So, excuse me, the very first fee that is a finance charge is the monthly interest. Okay? The next one would be, let's say that we did an appraisal. Okay? An appraisal, even though I paid the mortgage company, would still be a third-party charge, because when the bill comes in, the lender is going to send the money over to the appraisal management company. They're not going to retain it. Okay? Another one would be, let's say, lender's title insurance. Well, the lender, they require this title policy, so it must be a finance charge. No, the lender does not collect for it. Even though they require it, it's still paid to a third party, which would be your title insurance company. Okay, so if you just remember, it's a fee paid to a company, a lender, and they keep it, then it's a finance charge. If it's a finance charge, what does it do? It affects the APR. It affects the APR. Okay, number two, the second part of that is a fee paid to insure or guarantee a mortgage. Okay, / loan. So you have, first one you have is private mortgage insurance. Private mortgage insurance, if you're going to pay PMI, let's say that you're getting a loan at 4%, but you're only putting 5% down, you're likely going to pay private mortgage insurance for about 11 to 13 years. And that is going to be a finance charge. It's a cost of getting the money. Even though it is paid to a PMI company, it is still, according to TILA, considered a finance charge. B is MIP, mortgage insurance premium. And that is often associated with what type of loan? FHA loans, okay? So if you've ever looked at an APR for an FHA loan, a 30-year fixed rate loan with the minimum amount down, what is the minimum amount down? 3.5%. They're going to pay that MIP for the entire life of the loan. So if you have an FHA with an interest rate of 4%, your APR might be 5.7. Okay, way up there. Why is that? Because that MIP adds to the APR every month that you pay it. And of course, we know that you pay the upfront MIP, okay, upfront mortgage insurance premium. Okay, then we've got C, which is VA for a funding fee. Make sure that you know the VA funding fee. VA funding fee for the first time use is 2.3%. Any subsequent use, any use after that is at 3.6%. Okay? So make sure you know your fees. And then D, we're going to look at, with a USDA loan, they call it a guarantee fee. Guarantee fee. So these items up here on the left-hand side will increase your annual percentage rate. And so when you go in to talk to a lender or when you see an ad, you can know confidently that they have factored in those 10 points that they're hitting you with when you come into their office. Okay, that's already part of the calculation. Okay? So that is how an APR works. Remember, if it's paid to a third party, it is not in the APR, it is not a finance charge. Okay. Mary, did you get okay with the say the percent again? I'm sorry, I didn't see that up. Okay. All right, any questions? Okay. Okay, so another thing that we look at while we're on TILA, let's look at it provides the right of rescission. Okay, so the right of rescission the right of rescission is the right to cancel. Okay, so a test question might be, okay, let's look at it. Good old Bob and Mary just signed the papers to purchase their new home. Oh, no period. Their new home. how many days must they wait before their loan funds? Okay, so we got A is 0, B is 1, C is 3, and D is no. Okay, so let's look at the question. Bob and Mary just signed the papers to purchase their new home. How many days must they wait before their loan funds? 0, 1, 3, or there's no rescission on a purchase? D. What do you say? D?
I was going to say, I'm in between D and 3 because the question is asking about the loan funding, not how many days they have to rescind.
Right. But there, so you could look at and you could say, well, they don't have to wait any, 0, but the most correct answer is this one. So the correct answer is D. Okay, there is no rescission on a purchase. Your borrower goes to sign their loan documents at 10 o'clock this morning, and they sign their deed and everything. The lender can fund that day. In fact, most lenders will fund that same day. Okay? So, again, either one of these answers would be correct, but which answer is the most correct? There's no rescission on a purchase. Okay. So let's look at the right of rescission in detail what it is about. Okay. So a right of rescission belongs to or applies to an owner-occupied primary. Okay, so we have several types of properties. We have primary, which means that's where you live the majority of the year. You have second home, which is a vacation home. Okay, and then third, you have investment properties. So this only applies to the one that the people live in. Okay, in my home here, if I was going to refinance it, I would have a 3-day waiting period. However, if I had a second home somewhere, there would not be a waiting period. Okay, it's got to be a single family residence. So if you have somebody and they have an owner-occupied triplex, it doesn't get the right of rescission. Okay? And then lastly, a refinance. Okay? So, doesn't matter if it's cash out, no cash out, etc. If it's a refinance transaction, they get 3 full business days to cancel. Okay, so if we look at the calendar here, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I get 3 days. So if we have a borrower and they sign their docs on Monday, they have 1, 2, 3. They have 3 full days to change their mind. Okay, they have till midnight of Thursday. If they choose not to cancel, then on Friday their loan would fund and they would get their money. However, let's look at another test question that you might come about with. So I want you to be prepared for it. Let's say they sign their docs on Tuesday. They have 1, 2, 3. So the test question is, a borrower signs their refinance documents for their owner-occupied home on Tuesday. When could their loan fund? Saturday. Why could it fund on Saturday?
Because a business day according to TILA is any day except Sunday.
Because the rescission was up midnight of Friday night, right? So if everybody was open, They could fund their loan, close their loan. They could fund on Saturday. When would they fund? They would on Monday. See that? So this is why it is so important that you read each question 3 times. Look for those. It's just one word, one letter. Could or would. Okay? So when could it fund? It could fund on Saturday. When would it fund? Likely on Monday. See that? Those are the little things that you have to pick up while you're taking your test, just to make sure that that you know them and get that question correct. Okay. So another important thing to remember: anyone on the right of rescission, anyone with liability. Anyone with liability for the loan can cancel. So let's say that one of my kids needed my wife and I to co-sign for their owner-occupied home. And so we're going to co-sign. We get the right to cancel. And so if I decide this isn't a good deal, I'm going to cancel. Okay, the deal's dead. It doesn't take everybody, doesn't take the majority. One person cancels who has liability for the loan. That means that they could be required to make mortgage payments on it, can cancel the transaction. Okay? And everyone receives 2 copies. 2 copies of right to rescind. Of the right to cancel. Let's look at one more test question that you're going to have, and that is if no rescission, so in the interest of space, if a borrower is not given the right to rescind. So we just like, oh, you know, we're going to close this real quick for you, etc. If the borrower is not given the right to cancel the loan, that rescission turns into 3 years. So if I'm closing a loan with you and you just kind of covered up and say, oh no, we'll just go on and fund this, you don't have the right to rescind. If I'm not given the right to rescind and I meet these characteristics here, my rescission period has gone from 3 full business days to 3 full years to cancel. Okay? So make sure you offer that for them. Okay, the last thing I want to go through with Tilla, and then we'll move on, is advertising. Okay? We're going to talk about the loan estimate and closing disclosure a little bit later on in this session, but for right now, we'll finish up with Tilla by talking about advertising. Okay? And advertising is regulated again by TILA or Reg Z. And TILA, the very first thing that they regulate is the annual percentage rate being disclosed in the ad. And they do that, they require that if you have any triggering terms in your ad. Okay? So, what is a triggering term? Okay, a triggering term is a specific number. So if we have an ad and we say 1% down payment or low down payment, which one requires the additional disclosure? It's going to be this one because we have a specific number. If we have 10% down, if we have rates at 4%, or if we have rates to fit your budget, again with the specific number. Okay, so if you see 0 through 9 in the ad, it's going to require 4 additional disclosures. Okay, and I already gave you the first one. The very first one is the APR. So if you put 1% down, if you put a 30-year term, you're going to have to disclose the annual percentage rate, okay, including the what? Including the finance charges. Another thing that you're going to have to disclose is the type of loan. Is it a fixed rate mortgage or is it an ARM? Okay, you're going to have to disclose the term, and you're going to have to disclose the amount of down payment. So there's one lender that I think advertises quite a bit. They do an exceptional job of disclosure. They'll come out and they'll say, today's rate on a 30-year fixed rate mortgage is 4%, APR 4.25. So they've already got those 3 out of the way. And then lastly, you know, if it's on TV, the very tiny print that you can't read, or if it's on radio, they're talking so fast that you think you're at an auction, they'll tell you what it's based on. Based on a $400,000 loan with 30% down, etc. You see that? Okay, so remember on advertising, triggering terms. So what is the test question going to be? All of the following are triggering terms except, or which of the following is a triggering term? Okay, questions on that? If you would like further information, please call me at 480-220-5999 and let me talk to you about how I can help you further advance your career. Our website, where you can locate more information about our services, is www.mpgu.com. That's mpgu.com.